Okay, so here we are going to apply a glass shader to an object and or create a glass shader in Unreal. And to do that, I have a number of things that I'm going to be using. I have a 3D model. This is just a rough 3D model that I made quickly in Maya to show the example here, where I'm pretending to be a wall and a glass, which would be my object that will receive the glass shader. I'm not going to texture the wall. I'm going to just to show the example of the glass. And I also have, this is an FBX format, of course, an FBX file. And I also have, and here, I'm trying to go back to my file here, some textures that I created like in Photoshop. Actually, let me just show the Photoshop file here since I have it. I have, this was my UV map that I created from Maya. This is the UV map for my window. I got from Pexel.com, I got a glass sketched photograph with some noise, and I duplicated it over, did some little sketching stuff that, so created something that would be, gave me idea of an old stained glass and with scratches and things. And I'm going to use this one as a mask, as an opacity mask. So my glass will let me see through certain places, and other places going to show dirt and some like a coloration. So and then I created and I modified that mask actually, and from that, my usage of it will be considering the idea that whatever is going to be black, you're going to see through. Whatever is going to be white will let you see the color information in your file. Again, black lets you see through, white won't, and it'll let you see whatever colors you apply to the material. Additionally to that, I created a color painting of my glass. So I grab a image of a kind of old stained, rusted plate or element, trying to get some of that color information to the glass. Of course, the glass won't play all of that directly. And I made a type that chemical painted old scratch logo on the glass. So both of them become one flat color on it. And for the opacity of it, I took this file and actually made a combination of both, in which knowing that black is going to block and black is going to let me see through, and white is going to show me the color. So I made I reversed the scratch texture, and I made it white to let me see through some of this coloration, and white to let me see through, better to let me see the logo color. So, and then the rest of it will be transparency. So I will not see anything but just glass with scratches and things. So I exported those out as TIFF files, and that's what I have here. So here is a TIFF file of the color, and then this is a 2048 by 2048 format. So I have a pretty decent size, and I have a grayscale version of that, in which my logo is white, so I can see the color information. Whatever is white, again, is going to see me. Let me see the texture. Whatever is black, is going to see transparency. So I'm going to close those here, minimize my Photoshop, and I'm here in Unreal, and I'm going to start bringing my assets to my Unreal project. So let me bring my Unreal project here. That one, this one. So I'm inside of my glass setup project. Of course, in your case, it will be your project where you are putting up all your textures. And I'm going to bring in here, starting with my model. So let me go and grab my FBX file. So my wall window FBX, I'm going to go and drop it into the content right there. And that's copying right away. And I'm going to also do the same thing for those two textures that I just showed you. The two tips images, I'm going to drop them right there next to it. You could create a folder in that if you prefer. Of course, that right away is showing me in my program a message that's saying that if I want to import. If you don't get that message, you can try people in that. So that's what I got. I got the shaders for the wall, the shader for the glass, the two objects, and the texture for the transparency. And let me import the other one right here. So there comes the texture for the color information. So with this, I'm going to start modifying the glass shader again. Let me grab those two pieces before. Put them both in my location right there. They're kind of tiny right now, but I'll try framing them there is. So I should be able to look around them, no problem. They're single-sided, so I'm not looking at them from this side. One by double clicking on that shader right now, it has a parameter information color that has the color that came from Maya. And I could modify that one if I wanted to by just simply clicking here and modifying the color there. And that will be pretty straightforward. If that was the color that I wanted to keep. I'm going to keep that one just for now, just to keep it simple, not get complicated. But glass has some additional things that I need to keep in mind. For example, I don't have opacity. Neither I have refraction. Allow me to play with the concept of glass. So I need to modify this glass shader. When I click on it, I'm going to scroll down here and find here the blend mode. I need to change the opaque to translucent. So that will let me see the opacity turned on, but that turned off some other things. So I need to actually scroll down here and go into the translucency and change the lighting mode so that the object is going to read the surface translucency volume. So by doing that, I get all of them activated. So that way I have metalness, I have specular roughness and opacity. And if I want to have some light on it, I'm not going to do that. Normal map, and then I have my refraction component. I'm going to create some nodes here that will allow me to manipulate some of those things. So the first one is going to be, I'm going to hold or press my one key on my keyboard and click my button on my mouse, and that creates a single constant node that I will be able to modify. And that one I'm going to connect it to start with the metallic. And if I put the value for that, I'm going to put a value of 1. So that is going to try to make my object a bit more volumetric, a bit more metalness, so that we can modify that later on to decide which one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just say 1 and click on my material, create a constant material expression. The thing is, if you tap here and then you went for constant here, constant, you can see a constant right there. So that will create an object. So just showing you the shortcut. Again, to call it, you press tab on your keyboard and then you type constant. And that way you will create it right there. Don't need to or 1, and then your left mouse button will do it. And I'm going to do this one. The next one I'm going to use, I'm going to connect it to roughness. So roughness, I'm going to just go and say that. And then the value I'm going to give to that one, I'm going to say 0.5. Right now, you see roughness makes it 0, make it very, very glossy. I'm going to just bring it down to 0, maybe 2. Then you can modify it later to see if it works better for you or not. And then I have opacity. I'm going to do another one, and then my mouse button. And then I'm going to just connect that to my opacity. And opacity, you decide how much opacity you want I'm gonna just put the value here. I'm gonna say 0.5, so semi-translucent. And I can see the opacity of the glass. There is not perfectly translucent, so I can see it. And so far so good. I'm getting the transparency and the elements, everything working properly. Now I'm going to create another one to manipulate the refraction. And you might want to do it, you might not want to do it. I think refraction is interesting in case you have objects inside your glass or your window, or any object you may want to render. So in this case, we're going to use a lerp node. And what it is a node that allows you to combine different nodes together plus an alpha. So I'm going to press my L key on my keyboard, and then my button, my left mouse button, and there's a lerp node. Again, that has an A node and a constant for A, a constant for B, and an alpha. And that one will allow me to manipulate the refraction, but I need to put some connectors or some attributes or nodes that manipulate that. The first one, I'm going to create another constant here. Sorry, constant, and I'm going to constant, but I'm going to make it 1. I'm going to just connect it to my object. 1, enter. I'm going to connect it to my A. Then I'm going to do another constant here, same trick. On this one going to be the index of refraction to transparency. So much how much refraction is going to be. I'm going to just put that one right there. And that one, according to physics, glass is 1.52. Maya uses 1.5, 1.2, depending on what you need. Now we are going to connect another node here to the alpha, and that other node is going to be using my left mouse button here to move my screen. And the other node is going to be a Fresnel value, and the Fresnel value is, I'm going to just type here, tab here, and then just type Fresnel, and then you can see my Fresnel right there. If you go and look for what it is, Fresnel is an attribute that, lenses use for angles, so that depending on the angle of the Fresnel, distortion of the object would be affected, or the lens of the glass would be affected. So this pretty much affects the angle of what the refraction will be. And so I'm going to connect that to the alpha. I think I got all those 3. I'm going to connect those output of that to my refraction. And I have this object already giving me a notion of what that is. Let me zoom out a little bit here and then just bring it down. So and that's all good. I'm going to just save my file here, make sure that I have my file by my shape, my material. So I have that, and I could apply this directly to the object, and that wouldn't be a problem. But I think that, when you are working in production and they say you want to apply the same shader to different objects, and you want to have the freedom of modifying those attributes based on the object, Unreal has something called create an instance of your shader. So it becomes an object that is more repeatable, reusable, and that you can modify that other object. So what that is that we can say, for example, I can right click on this object here and then change and say, let me see if I can get it on this one. Oh, this one won't let me do it because it's not a parameter. It's already a parameter that I could go and change later on. Let me see, I'm gonna try to do it on the metalless. Right click on it and convert to a parameter. The one that was already a parameter. So this one, what that is that I can go and change later on. I'm gonna call this one metalness. And that way I could go back in my instance and modify it. And I'm going to go here and then change some of the ones. I'm going to change my roughness. I'm going to convert to parameter roughness. And opacity, if you want to do that one also, convert that to a parameter. Opacity. And from this one, the lerp, you cannot change anything, but you could change, for example, the index of refraction. And the index of refraction, IOR, we used it the same way in Maya, so index of refraction. The way I can modify and decide how much refraction there is after the object. So I'm going to save this again. And I'm going to go and I close this window. You can see right away that the material is showing me the effect on the window. I can see a little bit of the glossiness and everything. But the material is just, you can see that kind of reflecting some of it, refracting some of it too. So there's a little bit of the refraction going on there. But this is not exactly an instance yet. So I'm going to click on the shader itself. That shader is applied to that. I'm going to right click on that. Let me say create material instance. So what it makes is that I'm going to say glass shader. That I'm going to rename it, actually make sure that I keep the word instance in it. All right, I'm going to click by accident. I'm going to rename it here. Instance. I mean, I'm renaming it. Okay, so it's an instance material. Okay, you'll have a better typing there. If I that means I can go and later on go and reuse this modified see if I can all right, that's much better. So if I'm not just simply now going to grab that object and then put it an assignment to my material right there. So hopefully they took it. If you don't know if it took it or not, you can go and look for your object in your details window here. Right there, actually my outliner is not the one. So here I have my object, I'll double click on it. If I get to look at it right here. So I'm gonna just have my shader still there. I'm gonna change it and assign the instance to it. It didn't take it when I dropped it in. So I double clicked on the object there and opened it, and then I assigned the instance to it. That way, I could now, if you look at it here, you can have that when I in the instance of the object, I could go and double click on it and modify, for example, turn on the metalness, opacity, roughness, and manipulate those values so I can have more distortion or more metalness or less metalness on my object, more opacity in my glass or less opacity in my glass. And same thing with my roughness, I can just keep it completely under control based on my needs. So that would be pretty cool. And my original object, my original shader is not changed. Okay, so that's all good, but I have not used my thing. So I created a shader, but I need to use now my textures. So I'm going to go back to the shader. That shader is still feeding the instance. And I'm going to grab, let me zoom out here a little bit. I'm going to grab from my content drawer here, I'm going to grab the two objects. What in my space here? I'm going to swap things. So this one is my color. I'm going to just simply grab the RGB and then connect it to the base color right there. So this one disappears pretty much. And then I'm going to grab the opacity one. This one I'm not using the I'm going to use it as RGB directly to my opacity right there. And that way I can. That was an RGB file, RGBA file. So No, it was RGB only, no RGB. I didn't have alpha on it. So I'm just using the RGB grayscale version from that. So now I'm going to save my file. First, make sure that I keep it. So now those two objects become part of my instance. If you don't want to put a texture in your file, you could duplicate your shader, keep a generic shader for other glass they don't have the logo, and then use the original instance that we had. So you can see right now, I got my object showing my logo, and I still have the potential, the opportunity to go and open my instance here and modify the metalness and how glossy I want it to be, how much dropness I want it to have or not. So I save it, of course, and then that way I can use, the best way I can have it. Right now my reflection seems to be a bit too much, so it's generating some little weird refraction there. But I hope this gives you the idea of what you need to do for your glass, and then we'll just continue working on it in the next video.